Good afternoon, folks. Deborah Roth here from Spirited Living. Could be evening, could be morning, depending on where you are in the world when you watch this. And you might be watching it right now. You might be watching it at a later time on my YouTube channel. If you're watching it on YouTube, definitely please comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I always start by doing these on Instagram and Facebook, and then I upload it to YouTube, and it's on YouTube after my web goddess plays around with it a little bit on Thursday nights. So that's when you can see my Inner Goddess Team videos. This is, wow, almost 5 years of doing these videos. And well, I was doing them every week for a while. Now I'm down to twice a month, maybe going to less than that. Not that I'll ever run out of goddesses and these archetypes, these divinely feminine archetypes that, as much as they're from cultures all over the world and some ancient, many of them, so many of them still honored today in different festivals, and their symbolism, their metaphors, their meanings, these archetypes are still so present and so powerful for us today. Reminders, and that's what the divine feminine is, reminders to embrace all of those divinely feminine qualities that exist within all of us, no matter what gender you identify with. In those qualities, some of them are compassion and collaboration and connection, honoring our intuition, honoring our emotions. I go much further into what the divine feminine represents in all of the YouTube videos. There's a little eye in the corner that's just a very short video that talks a little bit more deeply about what I mean by divine feminine qualities and these divine feminine archetypes embodied in my Inner Goddess Team videos, my feeling that we all carry this energy within us. And it is time, it is way past time for us to be embracing them and embodying them and bringing this energy back into the world. So I would invite you to really this is one, and I invite you to be very patient with me, especially those of you who are much better pronunciators of Welsh than I am. I'm highlighting today the Welsh goddess of love and flowers, and she has quite a rich mythology around her that frankly, I kind of struggled to find. I did find a fair amount of information about her, but to turn her story into something that was empowering for us today, and I think I found it. Her name, and again, I'm going to have to keep checking my phonetic spelling of this. Her name is cree-THIL-ahd, and the spelling is very different, which you'll see in the descriptions on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Cree-THIL-ahd. And while she's the goddess of love and flowers, and she is connected, because of that, she's connected, because of a lot of things, she's connected with Beltane, with May Day. And yesterday, the day before I'm actually recording these videos, was it's called the Lunar Beltane, which is the first full moon following May Day, following Beltane. And so it seemed like a perfect time, both the full moon energy and the Beltane energy that she's so connected with. So she is celebrated at this time as the eternal May Queen. She's always seeking peace and stability. You'll see why when you hear her pretty amazing story. She is the promise of love. And I'm going to read some of this. And I always put the links to my sources and in the YouTube channel. Golden glowing, moon flowing love, enduring through all hardship and despair. And that's key with her mythology. And she shows us, and this is where I struggled a little bit to find the connection. She shows us that through self-love, we can love one another and we can withstand any hardship. So she's mentioned only briefly in this pretty famous Welsh collection of 11 medieval tales, which is called the Mabinogion. And again, the spelling won't look anything like the pronunciation. And so there's not a whole lot about her, but her symbolism really shows how ancient she was. She was the daughter of Lud Silverhand, I'm sure it's pronounced differently, and she was promised in marriage to her heart's desire, Guther ap Gredalwul. But before she could marry him, before the marriage was consummated, she was abducted by Gwain ap Nuth, and he really possessed a lot of that. It's very similar, just realizing it, very similar to the Persephone myth in this way. Gwain, who abducted her, represents a lot of the underworld myths of, the dark aspects of the Lord of the Underworld. So her beloved, Guther, pulls all of his armies together and heads off with his warriors to rescue his love from Gwain. However, fierce battle ensues, and unfortunately, Gwain wins, and the level of brutality, apparently, and butchery that happened in this battle is so horrible that King Arthur is in this myth. And when he hears of this, when King Arthur hears of this, he marches off to Gwain's land, where cree-THIL-ahd is being captive, and to settle the matter, and declares that neither man can marry her, and that every year on Beltane, on May Day, that they must battle for her in this eternal battle until the end of time, until Judgment Day. So she never gets to marry her beloved. And yet she is always there holding the light, holding the energy of peace and hope that eventually this battle will continue. What's interesting is that her father never comes forth. He lets these guys battle out. He lets King Arthur come in. And what I thought was so interesting is that apparently this also, in a metaphorical way, represents this triangle that is found in several different Welsh or Celtic myths, like King Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot. There's that sacred triangle. Likewise with Tristan and Isolde. I'm actually going to do Isolde in another week or so, the goddess. So, and what that represents, let's see, the way this one particular source was just beautiful in the way that it described everything. It's more than, let's see, clue to the story is more than it appears. It's a Celtic/Welsh love triangle of a beautiful young noblewoman who loves a virile hero and is pursued and or married to another often darkly driven suitor. And it's the classic, if you know anything about, if you've read about Celtic mythology, they talk about the Oak King and the Holly King and what happens in the cycle of the year on both May Day and on Samhain, on what we know as Halloween, on the Day of the Dead, is that the Oak King and the Holly King, Oak King represents, the virile, strong, like the oak tree, time of the year. And in the Druid tradition, oak trees were much revered. And the holly tree represents the dark time of the year, when holly trees bloom, and they're evergreen. And both on May Day and on Samhain, on Halloween, these two forces battle. And so it represents, this whole story represents the cycle of death, of dormancy, of rebirth. And through it all, and this is what I really it was interesting for me to play with it, cree-THIL-ahd is the one who represents kind of the baseline. She's represented, another piece of interesting, me being a tree person, I loved all this tree stuff. She is represented by ivy. And remember, she's the goddess of fertility and ivy and flowers. And the way that the leaves come together in ivy is in the shape of a heart, which is kind of cool. Ivy itself, let me see if I can find that piece, symbolizing the power of life, because it is, I have ivy growing in my garden plot here in New York City, and it is all winter long, never dies. and represents this, as I mentioned, this ever-turning cycle of the earth, of sowing, of reaping, of dying and being born, sowing, reaping, and then dying and being reborn, of death and rebirth. So she's the symbol of love, represented by the ivy plant. And the ivy, I love this too. The ivy, with its tenacity, it just never stops growing. It clings to everything, symbolizes the strength and tenacity of love. So we have this, there's so many wonderful symbols in this whole story. Bottom line is that she makes, Creiddylad makes a very clear decision to be with her lover. And she, while she sits back while they battle with each other, that was the part I had a difficult time with. She watches them battle for eternity, but she stays true to her heart, and it's her choice. And that's where apparently the message of self-love gets woven into this story. And that by embracing self-love and acceptance, we grow into a state of abundance. And not only does she gift humanity with this abundant earth, all these cycles of death and rebirth on earth, but she gifts us with the ability to accept and receive that abundance, and and the strength to work through adversity and hardship, which she can never be with, with the man that she loves, because he's constantly got a battle twice a year with her dark suitor. So it's with her, and it's so in tune with the message of Beltane too, which is about fertility, which is about the overriding success. Well, success is the wrong word, but how love can conquer all. So it's a little complicated, frankly. I had a hard time with it, but I think if we embrace her as a reminder, how is it that this energy that I've described in this pretty powerful myth, how is it that we can tune into that today? I would say to call on her when we need that kind of strength, the strength of the ivy plant that she represents, that tenacity, that strength to endure through hard times. Also for self-love, to make the choices that are important for you to make, and that nurture and take care of you. So there's just so much to it. I didn't completely destroy, I don't think. I think I got most of the Welsh pronunciation right. I thought what I would bring to you, one that I don't think I've sung in several years, is a beautiful full moon chant that was on May 12th. And because that May 12th was the Lunar Beltane, it seems appropriate to really honor her, who was this goddess of Beltane, of love and flowers. So I will leave you with this beautiful chant. I invite you to look her up. Weird spelling, well, I won't say weird, an uncommon spelling for those of us English speakers, but a beautiful story, a beautiful, powerful story. But the full moon chant I want to share with you is this. Under the full moon lightly dance, spirits dance, we dance. Joining hands we dance, joining souls rejoice. Reminded me of a May dance also, holding hands and doing the weaving. Under the full moon lightly dance, spirits dance, we dance. Joining hands we dance, joining souls rejoice. Bum, bum, under the full moon lightly dance, spirits dance, we dance, joining hands we dance, joining souls rejoice. So whether you can see the full moon or not tonight, I managed to get a beautiful picture of it over the weekend before the clouds moved in. Just take a moment, while we're still in the light of the full moon, of the Lunar Beltane, just take a moment to really embody your own connection to self-love, to the cycles of the mother, of the earth mother, and remembering your love of flowers and love, and giving yourself some of that self-love to endure hard times. Thanks for being with me, and I'll see you next time. Please do comment once this gets to the YouTube channel, and let me know I would love to hear more about her for those of you that are more experts on Welsh mythology and wealth goddesses than I am. Bye for now.